All right, hey everybody, happy World Cup time.
What?
Happy World Cup time. I figured
Oh
I'd
my
throw you
god.
out.
I didn't even watch. I don't even know.
Throw you off, not throw
Yeah,
you
it's
out.
throwing. Yeah, it's throwing me off right now. I mean, I know we're watching highlights of it right now,
Do you want to
but
fake an injury so that we can hurry this up and
oh boy. Saw the funniest thing yesterday. Actually, before we get into it, I saw somebody took a picture of a foosball table full of soccer players that were like on the ground, not on the turnstiles,
Yeah.
or on the knobs, I should say.
See,
But
I'm
yeah,
like one of the Canadians that I mean, I guess you could say it, one of the people that as a sport, I don't really enjoy soccer, but during World Cup time because I love competition, I love the World Cup because there's nothing more crazy than soccer hooligans.
and that's the thing is that the fans and these and it's and especially in an international tournament, and there's it's pride. It's, you think of what hockey is to us here in Canada,
Hmm.
and like put it on steroids and put it in Russia,
Yeah.
or in Portugal or in
Mhm.
Argentina. The coolest thing I found was Iceland.
Yep.
Iceland has a population of just over 300,000 people, and they have a team in the tournament,
Yep.
and they qualified. And I think I don't know.
Bet you Gunnar Stahl didn't make the team.
Gunner Stall. Actually, as we later on, we'll get back. I watched a Mighty Ducks movie over the weekend.
Awesome.
I saw Mighty Ducks on TV. Actually, I'll just get out of the way now. Scott White, the guy who plays Gunner Stall,
Yep.
plays the opposing goalie in D3.
Yep.
So he's the same. So
Scooter.
this bugs me. This bugs me when the same actor plays two different characters in the same realm or the same
Yeah.
world.
I love how he has two really objecty names. So the first one's Gunnar Stahl, and the second one is Scooter.
That's
So
lovely.
yeah.
Anyways, welcome to Coach's Corner, episode 10. We're 2 minutes in, so we
Yeah.
already shaved 2 minutes off the clock with that. But yeah, we missed out last week, but we got lots of stuff to go over. I mean,
Mhm.
new Stanley Cup champions, first time Cup winners, Washington Capitals, won in 5 games.
Mhm.
We have the upcoming NHL draft comes up Friday night. The awards were last night. Did you
Mhm.
watch the awards at all?
Not really.
I watched them. I watch them every year. And I thought that this year, being that Las Vegas has a team in the NHL, that
Hmm.
they were gonna maybe do it out of a different site because they've been doing it in Vegas for the last over 10 years now,
Hmm.
and it makes a cool night out for the players and their families and everything like that.
Yeah.
I just figured that with the team there now, that wouldn't necessarily be I don't know, like a big attraction or a big deal because they
Hmm.
have their own hockey team who did incredibly well this year, and they cleaned up at the awards last night too.
Yeah.
But the one thing I thought was the best, and I think Taylor Hall summed up really nice in his speech when he won the MVP.
Yeah.
Before that, throughout the evening, they honored the first responders to the shooting in Las Vegas on October 1st last year. They also brought up the survivors from the Humboldt Broncos,
Yeah.
and the coach Darcy Hogan posthumously won an award for basically leadership in the community, and I thought that there just brought me to tears when watching
Hmm.
that. It's just so inspiring. And then Taylor Hall goes up and he said it perfectly. He says, "You know what?" He's like, "I was nervous, thinking maybe I had to come and give a speech tonight. I was up for this award,
Hmm.
but knowing now, you hear that speech, you see that presentation that they did, and it puts everything in perspective.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, you're playing Taylor Hall's playing a hockey game, gets paid very good money.
Hmm.
He's very talented. An award like this, I mean, yeah, obviously it means a lot, but at the end of the day, he, it's those guys there that show that there's more to it than hockey. It's life. It's the people you come across. So
Yeah.
I thought that was a nice touch on him when he made his speech. Also made a shout out to Nico Hischier.
Yeah. And I really
Basically
like that.
said,
Number 13.
Number
the one I couldn't
13.
think of.
Number 13. So before we started doing this, we actually tried to give ourselves a little bit of a test. We weren't going to do it on here because it probably would take up the whole time. But we tried to actually just count NHL jersey numbers and associate one player with every number, whether they're wearing it currently or it's retired or they wore it in the past, or even if they were called up as a minor leaguer
Yeah.
15 years ago. And Chris couldn't get 13.
And
And we said earlier on in the one podcast that never aired, the one that never saw the light of day, he was going on about his dad wearing number 13, growing up with that. And
yeah.
I would have figured you would have had more in the vault there to pass on.
No,
And,
that's
you
all I could think
froze.
of.
You froze, man.
All I could think of was Pops.
So what do you think? So what's your take on the Stanley Cup Finals on the Caps? What are your thoughts on this?
I thoroughly enjoyed watching the final game. You know what? One of the funniest things when I was watching the final game is I cheered probably harder than I did as a Colorado fan in that final stretch when it was like fight for the playoffs. I cheered for Ovi harder than I cheered for them because I wanted to see, and obviously we got it, the absolute shit show that ensued from him winning the
Like
cup.
it hasn't stopped. Like it's still going on.
He's probably had sex with the cup. I'm just gonna throw it
There's
out
that
there.
one picture of him laying in bed with the cup with that fucking shitty grin on his face. And everyone's just like, he did it,
Yeah,
dude. He's holding
he
the
rubbed
cup.
his wang on it.
You know what? I thought it was cool though because he did an interview a few days ago, and he brought the cup to the Children's Hospital in D.C. And he's walking around holding the Stanley Cup, just wanted everybody to touch it.
Yeah,
And he's saying it's magical, it's history, it's you know what, it's inspiring, and I think it's cool. You think of hockey players as the robots. You think of them as they don't really have that much flair or personality during interviews. They're really conservative when it comes to issues or anything like that. But we'll get into that later for some other teams that don't necessarily follow that. And it's just the idea of a team winning, and they were so excited to win and so jacked to win. And it looks like winning meant something.
yeah.
It wasn't just you win the Stanley Cup, it goes on your trophy, you take a lap around the
Mhm.
ice and get your picture. These guys, this is the pinnacle of the epitome of how a championship team. I wouldn't say how they should act, but how excited you can
Yeah.
get. Like you won the
And of a
Stanley
hard
Cup.
fought win,
Oh yeah,
right? Like even though they went and they didn't go to game 7, but like that was a hard fought series,
that series
right?
you could, and we said it before on the last podcast a couple weeks ago. But if Braden Holtby doesn't make that save in game 2 and the game goes to overtime and Vegas wins,
Mm-hmm.
Washington has to win 4 of the next 5. And yeah, sitting here now saying yeah they won 4 straight after,
Mm-hmm.
but at that time going down 2-0, going home, um, and Vegas has been a good team on the road, and and especially in game 3, I know Vegas they held them off for a bit and they looked like they were going to try and push. Game 4 was all caps, obviously.
Yeah.
But I don't know. What were your thoughts on the final game? I mean, that one there looked to me. I mean, Washington was trailing going into the third period.
Yeah.
You know.
And I I think that Washington played that game exactly like I thought they would, which is that whether you're down 5 goals or you're down 1 goal, you're gonna play the game the exact same way.
Or if you're up by 3 or
Or
4
yeah,
goals.
exactly it, right? And I feel like they seemed calm all the way through
Yeah.
until we got to like the final minute and stuff like that, where you could see a little bit
And
of
they're
the
just throwing the puck down the
yeah.
ice just to try and
But
kill the
for
clock.
that whole third period, they were calm. Like you looked at Ovi, he was calm. Everybody was calm, right?
They were excited, and I mean, what a goal by Devontae Smith-Pelly though. Did you see the tying goal? So when he gets the puck gets kept in at the line. I'm pretty sure it's Brooks Orpik that kept it in, made a great play.
Mm-hmm.
It was awesome. I always shit on guys like Brooks Orpik and
Yeah.
say they're no skill guys who sit on the blue line, but you know
Mhm.
what? Those are the kinds of guys that you win championships.
There was a
with.
lot of players that even in like other teams that stepped up through this
Well,
playoffs.
Ryan Reeves
Like
was a big factor against Winnipeg.
Yeah.
You go back to
After I chirped him.
yeah,
So you got
and well,
any
yeah,
Winnipeg
I know,
fan can thank, or
I
any
know.
Las Vegas fan can
But
thank
you're,
me
you're
for that.
totally right. Guys came alive. I mean, Mark Scheifele was an absolute beast against Nashville, especially in Nashville. Paul Stastny too in that last game.
Yeah.
You can Jake DeBrusk in Game 7 against the Leafs. There's a lot of good moments for the playoffs.
Yeah.
I mean, I like the Caps run because there's especially like I said, Devontae Smith-Pelly and the guy that I've become a huge fan of, Lars Eller. Over the course of the playoffs, I don't think there's any one player that I've started appreciating more
Mm-hmm.
than a guy like Lars Eller, knowing when Backstrom goes out with injury, Kuznetsov misses most of Game 2 against Vegas, and who steps up? It's Lars Eller. And he's a guy that was basically cast away from the Canadians. I know they got two second round picks for him from Washington. Turn around and flip those same picks for Andrew Shaw. So you might as well traded Lars Eller for Andrew Shaw.
Yeah.
And watching after seeing Andrew Shaw play in the playoffs with the Hawks before, and watching Lars Eller especially on the Canadians against the Sens over the years, and now with the Caps. he's a guy that for me has just really stepped up his game and has kind of carved out a spot for himself in Washington.
Yeah.
He's a very good spot there
So
for
yeah,
sure.
I think it was a very good finals. It was the first year in probably the past 5 years I'd been really excited to watch the finals.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. I mean,
including even though there was a team in the finals that I did not want in the finals at
no,
all, right? Like I don't want Pittsburgh to make the finals,
no.
but I didn't want Las Vegas to make the finals more.
I just think that the whole idea, and I know I say this a lot, but I know we touched on it before. But in the first year in the league, you're not supposed to be in the finals,
Nope.
and that's you know what? No, full credit to them though. They took advantage of everything. I mean, yeah, they everyone says, oh yeah, they booked or they picked their team, and you know what? They didn't have. Everyone looked at the team they picked last summer and then looked at the roster this fall. And could anybody tell me this team was going to make the playoffs, let alone have the
No,
season they
you
had?
couldn't
No,
anticipate.
not at all.
And there's a lot of scouting involved, right? Like, there's a lot of players that on that team. One of the ones that sticks out is Nosek.
Yes,
Like,
he had a great American League championship last year
yeah.
with the Grand Rapids, and he
So
was a big time player for them
to
there.
scout a guy like that and to understand this the depth that goes into making that pick, right?
Hmm.
It's not just going and this guy,
Yeah.
right? Like they looked at that guy a lot. They looked at um, especially when you get into taking players. I'm going to bring up Ottawa,
Hmm.
right? Um, they kind of fleece a bunch of people on a bunch of deals, right? Ottawa getting the shit end of losing the thought
Yeah.
and then them trading him right away. But it's like if you think any of that came up 3 days before the expansion draft,
No,
they had
that's
been
they've been
looking at
thinking about
that,
that.
and that trade had probably been made in their mind
Well, I think
months
that they wanted
before.
to do, and they even said it themselves. They went into that draft last year and they picked, I think, what was it, 13 or 14 defensemen.
Mhm.
No, maybe not that many. It was over 10. And you need six to round out your team or seven to have on your roster. And you think about guys in the minors. And yeah, Mark Methot maybe was picked and was never ever thought of actually playing a game for the Golden Knights, which is a shame to think about because he's a great hockey player. He's a good leader. And I think the Sens, their whole season kind of fell apart even before it started, and I think that had a lot to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
And guys like Vegas, like George McPhee won GM of the year last night, and he said it flat out before they made the draft. They said that, or the expansion draft. So we'll work out side deals, and if you don't want these guys picked, we're going to give you every opportunity to work around it. And
Mm-hmm.
what he means by every opportunity is I'm going to take a lesser roster player, and you're going to give me a second rounder at the same time, because that's how he swung deals to get. Well, you think about look at Columbus for example, or not Columbus. I know they made the deal with getting Carlson there, and no one really thought much of him. But Anaheim, they had a bunch of defensemen that were open to be picked. We're talking like Sami Vatanen.
Yeah.
I'm not. I don't think Hampus. I'm not sure if Hampus Lindholm was available. Cam Fowler. There's a bunch of
Mm-hmm.
guys like that, and they made a side deal saying, "Okay, don't touch Vatanen. You can take Clayton Stoner, and in return, if you take Stoner, we'll give you Shea Theodore." So
Mm-hmm.
Shea Theodore was never drafted by the Golden Knights. He was acquired in a trade
Yeah.
because they pawned him off because the Ducks didn't want to lose any of their
Mm-hmm.
core guys
And then don't take Vatanen and trade him
and trade
15
him
games
for
into the season.
but that trade was needed though. They were without Getzlaff for a long time and without Kessler and
Mm-hmm.
needed a centerman. So and you could do a lot worse than Adam Henrique, that's for sure.
Yeah,
He's a
for
good
sure.
hockey player. You mentioned the magic word, the Ottawa Senators.
Is it the magic word or the word that
It's
makes
the
everybody
word that
scream
makes me. It's
profanity?
the word that makes me want to just like crawl in a hole and just like forget that hockey even exists.
So I'm from that area,
Mm-hmm.
and I gotta tell you, to be that close to like that whole area through both of their shit shows that they've been through in the last like 15 years,
Yep.
like the whole almost losing Alfredson, having him sign,
Well, you can go
and
further
then
back, almost losing a team in 2003 until Melnick saved the day at the
right
time.
that I don't know this team just seems like a wreck.
They're a wreck. They're absolutely a wreck. I'm gonna kind of give you a bit of a timeline because, like I said, I follow these guys all the time. Last summer they lose Methot, and the whole idea was Dion Phaneuf didn't want to go to a bottom. He didn't want to waive his no move and didn't want to go to a bottom feeder Stanley Cup finalist as we look back on 10 months later, or 12 months later, sorry.
Mm-hmm.
They go into the regular season. They didn't really do too much to improve their team last year. They thought that they were going to carry over from their run, but they lost depth guys. They lost. I know. I like Victor Stalberg. Victor Stalberg is
Mm-hmm.
a good player. He went to Switzerland. Tommy Wingles didn't come back. They not to say these are big losses, but those are guys that make the team. And yes, they had younger guys like Colin White coming up, or Logan Brown potentially getting in, or Philip Schlapper. So they go to Sweden. By the time they get to Sweden, they make the trade just before they go, and at that point they're in good shape. Then they win 2 games in Sweden, come home and just are horrible. It's like something happened, whether it's jet lag that Coach Boucher alluded to. Then they go through an absolutely horrible run where they can't win a game if they can't score a goal. If they are scoring goals, they're letting in just as many, and then everything unfolds about Carlson wanting to leave, and then you get to the trade deadline, and those bodies aren't really moved. Like you didn't trade a Zach Smith, you didn't trade you traded Dion Phaneuf, which seems ridiculous because you didn't want to move his no move.
Mm-hmm.
And I bet you that anybody would have preferred Method over Phaneuf on the team. And no disrespect to Dion, because I think he's a good hockey player. And then obviously go to the end of the year and the whole thing with Carlson and his child. And now on top of the whole crazy. Oh, sorry, I skipped out on Eugene Melnick at the Centennial game, basically saying that the team may look better elsewhere. Whether he means in a different part of the city or a different city altogether, who knows what message he was trying to fire there. But now all this with Mike Hoffman and his girlfriend Mike Carrick and Eric and Melinda Carlson. This is just too much for me as a hockey fan. This is Young and the Restless type of shit. This is
Yeah.
not. This isn't hockey. This is soap opera. This is actually better storytelling than wrestling you used to watch back in the day. Not today, where it seems I don't even care for it. I don't even watch or pay attention to it. But back in the day, it was all about the stories and the soap opera.
Yeah.
And this is what's happening now, and you don't want this from a hockey team. That's the
No.
last thing you want to do.
And then you have, you know, Pierre Dorian not wanting to trade players within his division, and then San Jose completely fleeces them.
Two experienced
And
guys in Dougie Wilson and Dale Talon just told Pierre Dorian, you know what? We're going to make moves with or without you.
yeah,
And you know what that says to me? That said, you think about all the trades that Dorian's been a part of. So Dorian's traded Jonathan Dahlin for Alex Burrows and then extended Burrows. He traded away a third rounder to Carolina last year for Stalberg at the deadline. Yada yada yada. He makes some trades. A couple years ago when they drafted Logan Brown 11th overall, they actually had the 12th pick and they flipped picks with New Jersey and gave up like a early second rounder to move up one spot. And you knew that the Devils weren't going to take Logan Brown.
Yep.
Pierre Dorian may have his hands tied, but he's kind of making it known to everybody that he is probably one of the least smartest GMs in the league because he's getting played. He gets played, and I'm sure he's a nice guy, and he's a great scout from everything that I've read. He's been with the organization for many years.
Yeah.
But when it comes to making these deals, you think how these GMs are. It's part of the old boys club. These guys, they'll all wheel and deal with each other.
Yeah.
They're picking this guy's pockets clean. And
Well-
that's why I'm afraid of this potential Carlson trade. If they get back a first-round pick, a decent roster player, and a good prospect, you know what? For a generational talent like Erik Karlsson, that's just not enough.
No.
That's just not enough to go off.
No.
You
And
know?
if you look at, and this is, I'm going to bring up the whole Matt Duchene thing because that was
That was a big part of the season, and everyone said that. Oh, they started to go downhill and they got Duchene, they got rid of Turris, and I think it didn't really help matters that Duchene was ice cold when he came over and Turris was lighting it up in Nashville.
Yeah.
But I think that evened out though over the course of the year. But
yeah, because
at the time,
Duchene ended up playing fairly well throughout the crap fest of the season.
He was
that
at
they
the
were
end of the
having.
year. That's sad. Him and Hoffman had really good chemistry at the end of the year.
So I think that trade in itself too is kind of a good example of Pierre Dorian getting kind of fleeced on the whole thing again,
Mhm.
only in the sense that two teams came out looking really, really good, and then at the early onset of that trade, it seemed like a loss. Although it's turned into, and I think it still will be a win of a trade because I can't see Matt Duchene leaving now. Being from Halliburton,
I think that
I
he'll stick around, and it
I don't
justifies
see
it.
him signing a $7 million contract. I don't see him signing a $6 million contract. I see him kind of sitting in that like 5, 7, maybe a six, like maybe
Well,
six.
he's clocked in at 6 now, and you got to think that the salary cap's going up. It's been announced today. It's actually going up to 79.5 million a year, up from I think it was like 74. So it's
Mhm.
shot up by a decent amount. That's a second line player, an extra second line player that teams can add
Yeah.
with the space. I think Duchesne, when he does sign his new deal, I wouldn't be surprised if you see like a 6 year, paying him $7 million a year.
Oh yeah.
I don't see him being that kind of player, but it's just the going rate. If Bobby Ryan makes $7 million a year, and
Bobby Ryan
And
makes $7 million a
and
year
if
5 years ago.
Evander Kane, but Evander Kane though just signed a deal with San Jose, 7 years, 7 million a year.
That's true.
And you know what? I like Evander Kane. He's not a bad player, but Duchesne was the guy picked right before him.
Yeah.
And I think Duchesne's the better hockey player. Less of a distraction, although some people might like to nitpick because of the shit show in Colorado last year, and then walking in the
Mhm.
same thing in Ottawa. Um,
One thing you got to respect about Duchesne, though, is that even though Colorado played terrible last year, he played well.
he
He
wasn't a bad, and even when it was publicly known that he wanted to leave, that as much as I can have a toll on you mentally and
he
psychologically.
never faked injuries at the end of the year, or it's
No,
not that hockey players fake injuries because most of them don't.
we're not talking soccer now,
But
right?
he still went out. He still put up 19, 20 minutes a game.
Yeah. No, they didn't have anybody else to play though.
Yeah.
He had that signed by
So
default, I think.
you know what? Like if your player's going out there, you're getting a quality guy coming in, and I think he's gonna stay, and I think he's a valuable building piece around because he's a speed player. He
He's
plays with speed, and that's been Ottawa's game for a
they
long
need more.
time.
They need more of that in their game, and
And
that's a good. That's the guy that it starts with.
and they need positive speed, right? Because you can be fast end to end, but can you be quick on either side of the puck?
Yeah, how agile can you be?
Yeah.
Are we talking speed, like nose down, like you said, end to end, or are we talking? You know, are we
Are we
talking
talking
guys
Dylan
game
Larkin
speed?
speed, or are we talking?
Well, yeah, and he's a fast player. I mean, I don't get to watch him as much. Duchesne's good on the faceoffs too.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's a bonus for them. Kind of scares me going into the offseason is knowing all the turmoil going on in Ottawa right now, and Mark Stone's an RFA. So and no one's been offer sheeted since Shea Weber was back in the day, signed a massive deal with Philly, and then Nashville matched it. I can see Mark Stone getting signed to an offer sheet. That would pay him, maybe 7 million a year.
Yeah. I see
He,
one of the older GMs
I
trying
can see
to.
somebody because again, going back to Dorian, and again, he seems like a nice enough guy, but this is a dog eat dog world, and even more so in the NHL when you're playing for keeps,
Yeah.
and you got a guy that's your owner that's barking commands and you know what? You want to gut the hockey department, the hockey ops department down, and make your job that much more, more responsibility, I should say. And guys are going to take advantage of Dorian, and I think that all
Well,
it's going to take is one GM to come up there and say, "Hey, I'm signing. This is the deal. It's signed." And Dorian's going to go to Melnick and say, "Mark Stone wants $40 million over the next 6 years, and are we going to give it to him?" The answer should be hell yeah. But a guy like Eugene Melnick might think, well, you know what? This is his quote before. We used to spend to the cap. We didn't win. We figured we'd go a different way.
yeah.
That's not a way of running a business.
Mhm.
If you're not doing everything you can to give yourself the best team out there or to
Yeah.
put the best product on the ice, tell you what, if they no, I know they don't really have much of a control over Stone because they have the right to open up their contract talks with him at any time after the draft. If they trade Carlson, how many people do you think are going to see the games next year?
Yeah, and that's you already cut the whole top
That's
row out of your
huge.
stadium.
Well, they're putting it back in. Apparently, they say they're putting it back in. They said that whole idea was a little, whatever. And I hear and read so much about this team again that it seems like a sideshow circus more than a hockey team,
Hmm.
and it's a shame because some of the best memories of my life involve either. I say some of the best memories. I say sports memories. I used to go see a game every year. We
Yeah.
didn't go this year, but we go see a game or two every year. I watched pretty much every one of them on TV, I follow this team, and it's disheartening. It's not even like the hockey product is what's failing. It's everything else, and the product on the ice isn't great either. Don't get me wrong, but it's
Mm.
everything else that just you know, when guys' girlfriends and wives are doing shit like that, and the whole room knew about it apparently.
Mhm. With other people from other teams
Well,
verifying.
yeah, the one I was reading, I can't forget her. I can't forget her. Sorry, I can't remember her first name. Daniel Winnick's wife. Daniel Winnick plays for the Minnesota Wild. Never played on the Ottawa Senators ever before, and she knew enough about what was going on, and allegedly Mike Hoffman's girlfriend. And it sounds like to me, if I just had to guess, and there's been lots of theories, if I had to guess, I'd say that she's been doing it and he just didn't know about it
Yep.
because it's from random accounts from it doesn't have her name on it. And what happens when the boys go for a roadie and they're in California for a week or something like that? Do
Yeah.
you think Mike Hoffman can see what his girlfriend's doing on her phone?
No. And
No.
that's just it, right? And I'm going to go and I'm going to play the devil's advocate. And I'm going to say it might be slightly inflated or exaggerated,
Mm-hmm.
but I definitely don't doubt that it happened.
No, and I think that, and yeah, it's innocent until proven guilty, unless four of the wives who used to be on that team flat out say, "Hey, no, this is what happened."
Mhm. But I think
Like,
if that trade happened, I have that's a pretty solid inclination that like it was they were starting to find a lot more and find a little bit more validity to everything. That it was make a deal quick before it becomes even more of a mess
well,
than.
you either one of two things. You either decide that if you have Hoffman and Carlson there, and I know there's talk about Carlson leaving, but if you're still genuinely trying to make a pitch for Carlson to stay,
Mhm.
you obviously can't keep Mike Hoffman.
Yeah,
You know.
and that's the only way you're going to show that you're in on him, right? And
Mm-hmm.
that's as much as this is you hope it's a move that like you know what we need to get rid of the kind of the bad apple in the room or like the sort of
Yeah.
it's a business move. You know what? That was in all honesty, that was probably in this whole Eric Carlson thing, as sad as it sounds,
Mm-hmm.
that was probably the best thing that could have happened for the Senators organization from a business standpoint because that gave them a direct way to show that they're in on him.
Without making any
Although
backdoor comments or
I
anything.
don't think it's going to work, but that's a
No,
good way to be like, you know what? We're with you, and we are with you wholeheartedly.
yeah, we'd rather trade away a guy who scored nearly 30 goals for us every year and be one of the best shooters in the league. We'll trade him away on a fairly friendly contract, even if we know you're leaving or you
Mm-hmm.
want to leave. They're showing. You're right. They're
It
showing.
was the
They're
only
backing him.
business
They're
move.
backing him on this for sure. For sure. Yeah, they're backing him on this. Basically, you know, I mean, if Carlson decides to leave, I mean, there's obviously other factors that are going to play into it. Melnick, money, the team. And I say the team, not necessarily the guys in the room, but I mean, if I was going to be this team who makes the playoffs one year and then falls back, and makes it again the next year and falls back, that's not what Eric Carlson wants to do.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's not at all where he wants what he wants to do, where he wants to go. Actually, speaking of Senators, I'm actually just looking up right now. Apparently, there's been a report out there now that Buffalo Sabres are not going to be qualifying Robin Leonard. So Robin Leonard is actually going to be jumping from an RFA to an unrestricted free agent on July 1st.
So where this quick like kind of like one shot then, who do you think makes a run for him? Because I
For
think he's still a signable goalie. I think Buffalo was just not the
oh
place for him.
well, Buffalo, and I mean that's what kind of that's what triggers me right now is that who does Buffalo expect to be getting? Because you talk about the good backups in the league. I mean, you're talking about Antti Ranta went to Arizona last year and had a slow start, but now he's been playing unreal. Um, you know. Scott Darling, yeah, he went to Carolina and didn't have a good year, and apparently there's been rumors of Carolina and Chicago orchestrating a trade that would see Darling come back to Chicago,
Mm-hmm.
and Chicago would then send Marian Hossa and his cap hit, even though he's not playing anymore, to the Hurricanes to offset that.
Yeah.
And I see actually, and just talking out loud. I mean, I wonder where a guy like Robin Leonard would go. I wonder if he goes to the Islanders. I wonder
That's
because
exactly what I was
they're looking
thinking.
for a goalie, and as we actually turn to the Islanders right now, Barry Trotz just named coach today.
Mhm.
John Tavares sounds like he's coming back.
I would say that's a move that's definitely done to make John Tavares want to stay.
Trying to give him any reason to stay.
Yeah, and I think he does stay. I don't think there's. I saw the funniest thing the other day, and like leave it to Toronto fans all the time to just blow things way out of. So they wrote down their cap situation so that or Toronto could sign John Tavares in 2 years. Okay, so they sign him this year. That means they sign Austin Matthews, Mitch Marner, and William Nylander,
Mm-hmm.
all the contracts, and they had John Tavares playing second line. And the only thing I could think about that is as if John Tavares is going to go anywhere where he is one, not a captain, and two, a second liner.
Well, I don't know if working playing on a specific line makes a difference. But I do see your point though. Why would he go somewhere where Austin Matthews is going to be obviously the number one centerman?
Mm-hmm.
He's a franchise player. You don't have two. I mean, obviously the Pittsburgh Penguins made it work, but those were both draft picks who have grown with the team, and that's what the team is built around. Bringing Tavares to Toronto doesn't really accomplish much. Gives them a great player, don't get me wrong, but there's also, I mean, they like I said, they're gonna be shelling out. We talked about earlier in the podcast, not this episode obviously, but in previous ones, that they're gonna be shelling out a lot of money to
Yeah.
these guys.
Oh, and these guys had Austin Matthews 11
That sounds
for
about right.
so signed for 11. Mitch Marner 9.5.
Mm-hmm.
William Nylander 9.3. John Tavares 10.9.
So okay, let us do the math here. My math isn't very good. I'm gonna bust up my calculator
That's
real quick.
40.
So sorry, you said Matthews is 11. Tavares was 10.
Yeah.
9.5 for
9
Marner, and 9.3.
for Nylander.
So that's 39. So that's might as well call it 40 million. That's half your salary cap right there.
Tied in four
Not
people.
one defenseman, and that's where Toronto's going to be hurting because if they're going to be going after any free agent this summer, it's John Carlson, and it has to be right hand shooting defenseman. Guy could play 23, 24 minutes a night. Won a Stanley Cup, so you have a winner.
Mhm.
And I know teams love going after those guys who win Stanley Cups. I mean, I remember when Ottawa signed Marty Gerber, Stanley Cup winning goaltender. Marty Gerber played games 1 and 2 against the Habs in the first round, didn't finish game 2, and played either game 5 or game 6 in the third round against Buffalo. That's the only playoff action this guy saw. And Ottawa signed him to a contract and made him out to be the Stanley Cup winning goalie. He's coming to play for them now.
Yep.
You know how ridiculous that sounds? I mean, but a guy like John Carlson had a lot to do with the Capitals winning the Cup. So
and I think to bank on a defenseman after a Stanley Cup is a lot better than banking on a goalie because we all know that goalies can get on hot runs.
yeah,
And
exactly.
you know, look at Andrew Hammond. I mean, I know his fizzled out in the playoffs, but did anybody think that he would go 21?
20 wins, 1 loss, 2 overtime
Like-
losses, and his first game was February 18th.
Like nobody could have expected that.
No.
And then obviously he
No
got a
way.
contract out of it, right?
He did, and that's how they lost Robin Leonard. They figured that once it came down to it, and Anderson came back, they were gonna keep Hammond in the net, and then when the playoffs started and things weren't going right, they got Andy back in, and they rewarded. I think when they gave that extension to Andrew Hammond, it was more or less, here's $3 million. We're going to give you a contract for the next 3 years. So I think it was 1.05 million a year. It's 3.15 million over the course of the time. And I think that they didn't care. I don't think they really cared if he was going to play the second or third year or how he was going to be.
No.
But I think they wanted to reward him and give him money because he saved their season.
Yeah.
They were down and out.
And the publicity of him was fantastic.
Oh my God, the Hamburglar,
Yes,
Curtis Lazar eating the burger off the ice.
So
like
that was
man.
it was a beautiful marketing move, but in the land of Ottawa, that shit just doesn't work.
No, there's always got to be some kind of bad news that drowns out any good news that the team could have.
Mm-hmm.
And it's sad because it's sad because there's a lot of, I mean, and maybe not so much now or recently, but going back a few years, even going back like 10, 15 years, that was the best Canadian team in the league in the 2000s, hands down. They were the best team. They were consistent year after year, always making the playoffs. And then they get into this whole thing like we were talking about where they get in and then they're out the next year. And they get their way in and they're out the next year. And the same pattern holds true.
Mhm.
You know, how's it going to go forward? I don't know. But it seems like when you're in an area where there's so many Leaf fans and so many Hab fans that have been there for years before you ever had a team or having a team in modern era,
Mhm.
that kind of negativity um, comes at you a lot faster, a lot harder, I should say.
Mhm.
But just well, we're talking about the draft right now, and about how good they've been doing. Colorado owns one of Ottawa's draft picks,
Mhm.
so your team owns one of my team's draft picks for over the next 2 years.
Yes.
What do you think happens with the fourth overall pick this upcoming Friday?
I did a lot of reading on this, and there's been a lot of like kind of flip flop analysts, right? So some say that Ottawa should give, some say that Ottawa should keep it for this year. This is just my opinion. I always see kind of long stretch and kind of I always want to think, and to be honest, if I was a GM, I don't really care what fans think about how I am a person and as a GM. I want to create the best team. I don't care about creating the best business. Okay? If this was me, I would be giving up that pick. I would give up this pick this year because they're going to be junk next year.
Mhm.
I would bet money that
There's a lot of people who know they're not
I
going to
would
be a
bet
good
money
team.
they're a bottom 3 team next year. And next year, I guarantee you by mid-season, there's going to be just as quality players as Zadina, as Svechnikov, as Kokanami or whatever the heck.
Kokuniemi. Break it down. It's like two different words. There's Kota and then Niemi, like Antti Niemi.
fair enough. That there's going to be players that are just that good that are going to come out of the ways that they're going to get one of them, whether it be this year or next year.
See, and I'm thinking the other way, and I think that they should make the pick because it's a fourth overall pick. So let's say next year they are junk, just like we're thinking, and I'm feeling
Mm-hmm.
the same way as you. Is that they're not gonna have a good team next year. I also watch the games. I won't buy any tickets. I won't buy any jerseys because who knows who the hell's gonna be there in a year from now.
Mm-hmm.
I think if they don't pick fourth on Friday night, what they're telling everybody is we're gonna give away a fourth overall pick because we're hoping that we're going to get the first overall pick because it's Jack Hughes next year. This kid apparently has been ripping up the United States Hockey League.
Mm-hmm.
His older brother, Quinn Hughes, he's older than him by, I believe it's 2 years, but depending on how the birthdays go. Quinn Hughes is draft eligible Friday night. And he played for Team USA at the World
Yeah.
Championships. Played a regular shift. Didn't look out of place as an 18-year-old kid.
Mm-hmm.
So Jack Hughes is going to be like the Jack Eichel, Connor McDavid, Austin Matthews of next year's draft.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, you don't want to give Colorado that pick.
Could you imagine if they do?
I don't even want to think about that because then you start thinking you got McKinnon, Rantanen, Landeskog, Tyson Jones is still there. Well, I say still there. He's going to be developing into even more of a player. And then you throw in Jack Hughes. I mean, Colorado, if that's how it shakes down, they're going to be scary good for many years. But going back to what we were saying earlier about trading Carlson, if you trade Carlson, your fans aren't showing up next year. If you trade the fourth overall pick because you think next year's pick is going to be better, and statistically proven, if they finish dead last the next year, they have a 19.5% chance of getting that first overall pick. They don't have great odds. Even if they finish dead last, they're likely going to be picking where they are now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And that's why I say give it this year because you give yourself the chance of getting that generational talent.
But what if next year you give that away, and next year you keep your pick, and let's say that you surprisingly get better and you finish 24th, and you wind up with like the ninth pick or the 10th pick or something like that, or who knows how it goes. I mean, I'm just again playing devil's advocate, but same to my point I was saying about if the fans aren't going to go watch a team that doesn't have Eric Carlson because they know that they're in for a tough few years. If they're saying that their team's going to be worse next year, they're banking on getting a higher pick.
Mm-hmm.
If you're banking on having a higher pick than the fourth pick, then that means you don't plan on having a good team. You don't anticipate having a good team next year.
Yeah.
So that's where it gets tricky. Is You have to. It's remember you said. I know you said you don't care how people perceive you. In my eyes, as a GM, it's almost like in public relations. You're almost like having to be the face. You have to answer to the fans,
Mhm.
answer to the media, and basically guide everybody on your vision of this team. And if you visualize this team being worse next year, that's not putting much hope or positivity in any of the fans that are going to be potentially watching your games or coming to your games.
Now, I'm going to use your point, kind
Yes.
of change your point,
All right.
and we're going to see how you
What you
feel.
got? What you got?
Are Ottawa fans happy right now?
Open up Twitter for a second.
So,
I follow a
that
lot of guys on Twitter. Sens Twitter is the most like amazing thing because it could be like celebrating like
they could
you know,
sign John Tavares on free agency
and they'll
day,
still bitch.
and Ottawa fans will still be mad
Yeah,
because with John Tavares, they're still not a good enough team.
and that's the problem. Is that you're at the
So,
point where they have to tear it if they want to get better and build a better system. I mean, I hate to say it, the Maple Leafs are doing things right.
yeah,
Their
they
AHL
have to
team
tear
just
it
won.
down.
They have to tear it down, build from within. Don't just stick a minor league coach in the minors in Belleville who's going to play the 29, 30-year-old minor league journeyman over the 22-year-old kid that you're hoping gets experience. That
Mhm.
kid shouldn't be on the fourth line in the minors. He should be playing good minutes.
Yeah.
If he's not playing good minutes, he's not going to progress. If he's not going to progress, what the hell are you even there for to develop players?
So
And
that's my point. Is that they're not happy now.
they're
They're
not.
not going to be happy next year.
But what happens next year? They
So
pick fourth overall again, and Jack Hughes is gone somewhere else. Are they going to just sit there and go, well, at least they didn't go to Colorado, or at least that wasn't our pick?
I think that's a
What's
gamble you have to
But
take.
that's a big gamble, though. And right now, I think you need to, as the Senators, you need to know, you need to do more about your surefire things. And if Philip Zadina is there, because they could go up to the podium on Friday night, they can go up to the podium and call Joe Sakic to come make the pick.
Yeah,
That's how little notice they need to give.
and see that's what I
That's
love.
why I want to watch it because this could turn into something really interesting.
This could turn into a complete Ottawa shit show.
Yeah.
And
And especially since it's been publicized by Dorian that they're not trading Carlson at the draft. That's been put out there,
and here's
and I have a feeling it's gonna happen. I have a feeling you can't rule that out. You can't take
Mhm.
it off the table. It's
yeah,
possible.
anybody can be moved with the right amount of money, right players, right. Like you're telling me if one of the things I've been seeing is I've been seeing a lot of chatter from scouts in like the South that are talking about Colorado wanting to make a run at Eric Carlson. It scares me what they would have to give up. But if you get a call saying that you're going to take, we'll give you Tyson Jost, Kale McCarr, your first back.
If I'm Ottawa, I'd probably take that. I'd
Like,
probably take that and say, you know what? As
because
much as
Carlson's not staying.
no,
Whether it
I'd
be,
love him to stay, but right now, it's if he stays, he knows that he would only be doing it to try and just make the fans happy. But it's not going to make the fans happy. What's going to make the fans happy is the ownership group being changed, and there's been rumblings about a new ownership group coming, and Daniel Alfredson being spearheading the group. Obviously, if there's truth to that, you can't trade Eric Carlson if you have a new owner coming in next week. But I also have this underlying sense that Eugene Melnick, who has stated he's never selling his team, would rather add fuel to the fire and watch the team burn to the ground before he says, "Hey, you know what? Maybe I made some mistakes. Maybe this isn't the right call for me." Because that's what it is right now. I don't think it's a matter of Eric Carlson. I mean, yeah, the whole Mike Hoffman situation got sorted out. He's not there anymore.
Mhm.
Great. And as much as it pains me to say it, Florida is going to look really good with him riding in the top six. But Eric Carlson is not going to. It wasn't staying or leaving because of Mike Hoffman. He's got his other motives. And you
Mhm.
know what? If he's going to be asked to take a large pay cut because the Sens don't want to pay, come on.
Mhm.
You gotta pay for greatness. You gotta pay. He's a great player. He's a generational talent.
Yeah,
And if you don't want to pay for him, and for all you armchair GMs out there who think that you could toss around a garbage player, a mediocre prospect, and a third round pick, get your head out of your ass. I'm tired of these guys, and it's always fucking Leaf fans trying to trade Tyler Bozak, who's on an expiring contract, JVR, also expiring contract, Leo Komarov. You know what? I hate it when people think that I'm gonna trade you my garbage, you give me your gold. You know, That's not
Yeah.
happening.
Here's David Clarkson for and a fourth
Oh
for
my
Eric
god.
Carlson. So you know what? After that epicness of a rant, I'm gonna cut us off for
Yeah,
this week's
because I
episode.
think CRTC would have something. Not that they have any governing body, but they'd have something to say about this. This keeps going.
So that's been episode 10 of the Couch's Corner podcast. We will catch you on the next one.
Peace out.
Ric Flair.
Woo!